Today, a big miss in the August jobs report as employers add far fewer jobs than expected last month. We have details and analysis. Amazon reportedly asking delivery partners to stop screening applicants for marijuana. It says it could boost the number of job applicants amid the driver shortage. But what are the risks? And it appears Apple is postponing its plan to scan your device for photos of child abuse after the proposed change sparked a backlash. But will the company still go ahead with it? That and much more coming up at NTD Business. Good evening. Great to have you with us. I'm Paul Graney. We have some in-depth coverage on the job market today, starting with today's Labor Department jobs report. U.S. hiring appeared to slow down significantly during the month of August. Employers adding only 235,000 new jobs last month, far below estimates of more than 700,000 jobs, and a huge drop from the new hires seen in July, about 900,000. In fact, August saw the smallest job creation in 7 months. Sectors of the economy that are largely behind the reopenings were hit hardest. Restaurants and bars, which had been the main engine of rehiring in recent months, shed 42,000 jobs in August. Retailers also posting a job outflow, losing 29,000 jobs. But there were some bright spots. The unemployment rate fell to a 17-month low of 5.2%. Long-term unemployment was down and average hourly earnings surging last month. So joining us to discuss the jobs report is Sarah Gordon, Head of Customer Success at Adecco, the world's second largest human resources provider, the perfect person to come and give us some analysis. Pleasure to have you back on the show, Sarah. Were you surprised by today's report?
Thanks, Paul, and I really do appreciate you having me. And, I was slightly surprised, and I'll tell you why, because I know that there's more than 10 million jobs open per Indeed. So there's a huge demand, but I will also say this, the last 18 months have shown us that you really shouldn't be surprised by anything. While I see this as maybe a setback, I am still super optimistic about the direction that we're going.
What were some of the more significant parts of the report for you?
So I think that, it was really interesting when I read it to see that the lag was really coming primarily from hospitality and leisure. So we know that is really a frontline worker, and with the surge of the Delta variant and kind of what's happening right now in the country, I'm actually not shocked by that, because that is, you're getting a lot of exposure, and although there are jobs, I think people are just really, looking at rejoining those different areas. But we did see gains in the professional segment as well as warehousing and transportation, which really aligns with what we're seeing at Adecco.
So this is a really interesting point about the number of job openings. So a lot of people are quoting the president himself is citing the Delta variant as the drag on this report. Do you feel then that it is the workers or the potential workers who are reluctant to go back to work rather than the Delta variant having an impact on business itself and causing people to reduce the number of workers?
From my perspective, I really think this is the period of the great reevaluation. And I know we've heard this tagline of the Great Resignation. I would actually say reevaluation, because I think now more than ever, workers are thinking about how they want to rejoin the workforce and when they want to rejoin the workforce. And so they're being selective about how they get back in and looking at what really matters to them. So I think that the driver here is really the worker behavior and what we see as risk versus reward, and also where folks are kind of thinking about what is that next step that I want to take. And I know we talked a little bit about, upskilling and reskilling the last time we got together. And I think people have taken their time to decide what they want their next move to be. And so they're quite frankly being a little bit picky because there is so much opportunity out there.
Are retirements playing a role here? Are there baby boomers coming of age and deciding, okay, now is a good time to maybe leave the workforce? Is this what's happening as well, or?
Yeah, that's a great point. And we actually saw a record number of baby boomers leave the economy when the pandemic started. And they weren't really planning on doing it, but they just kind of reevaluated. Either they have grandkids or they have a health concern, spending more time with their families. This was a good time for them. They had savings. I think that's a really another interesting point that's happened with the American worker over the last 18 months is we've seen people save more money. So people are a bit more when they prioritize their life goals, they're looking at spending time with their children, spending time with their grandchildren, and deciding how that job fits in with those different priorities.
Are these people hard to replace given their experience?
Yes. So that's why the upskilling and reskilling conversation is so very important. So, we look at the baby boomers and what they really, the jobs that they were inhabiting were some of the highest skilled when it came to blue collar labor especially, but also on the professional side. So how do you help today's workforce accelerate those skills? So it's super important for employers to understand that as they're trying to attract workers, because career pathing and giving folks the opportunity to learn new skills on the job is more important than ever. Not only for the employee, which is super important because we get people out of that cycle of poverty as well, but also for the employer to backfill those kind of, in-demand skill sets. So it's a really, really important topic that we spend a lot of time talking about.
Sarah Gordon, Adecco. And Vermont wants to give you over $7,000 just to take a job there. It's a novel way to tackle the labor shortage. The jobs have to be part of the state's list of 50 job types, those that need the most workers. At the top of the list are cashiers, fast food and counter workers are second in demand, and home health and personal care aides are third. Vermont businesses that take part have to tell the government they couldn't find any local people to hire, and pay has to be about $13.40 per hour. To further entice people to come, the state is offering money for moving expenses and other fees too. Vermont officials apparently say interest in the program has spiked since it was made public. Construction payrolls fell by 3,000 last month, but there's a new initiative to help the construction industry recruit more women. It's facing chronic labor shortages at a time when spending on infrastructure is rising. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
Women make up only 4% of skilled construction laborers in the U.S. The latest initiative to change that culture is lean-in circles for tradeswomen.
We see this all the time. When jobs are higher paid, when jobs have more security, when jobs have more benefits, they often go to men. These are jobs that have all that.
Judaline Cassidy is a New York plumber and union leader, and established a lean-in circle of her own in 2017. She also encourages young women to join the construction trades through her organization, Tools and Tiaras.
We're really trying to get girls engaged in construction in all different facets, from architecture to engineering to sheet metal to ironworking to millwrights, all the way, just everything.
Her daughter, Carrie Mercer, is a third-year apprentice sheet metal worker. She says there's always some kind of challenge, and she learns something every day.
We might need to do some math or think about it and take a second and look and say, okay, it's not working this way. What other way can I try?
The number of women in construction surpassed more than 1 million for the first time in history in April 2020. But the biggest challenge is changing cultural attitudes in the field.
I actually tried to get into the union with my other co-workers that were men, Plumbers Local 371 in New York City. And when I got there, the guy said to me to go home and do dishes.
As spending on infrastructure rises, construction firms will need to hire at least 430,000 new skilled laborers in 2021. That's according to an analysis of federal data by Associated Builders and Contractors. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And amidst the labor shortage, Amazon is telling delivery partners like trucking companies not to screen job applicants for marijuana usage. But what are some of the risks? NTD's Con Frederickson reports.
Amazon no longer wants to screen drivers for marijuana use. It reportedly advised its delivery contractors to stop testing for pot, and that this could boost the number of applicants by 400%. This comes amidst a widespread worker shortage.
One of the biggest things that we would have to be of concern would be if a driver actually was smoking either before, during, the middle of doing delivery type of services and everything.
Matt Glowiak is a drug counselor at Choosing Therapy. He says the degree of intoxication depends on many factors, such as the mode of ingestion, dosage, THC potency, and so on. someone highly intoxicated is more likely to get into an accident.
Difficulties with sensory motor. So for example, reaction time is going to slow down. Magnified type vision, so that's going to mess with depth perception and so on. And also does slow down judgment.
An anonymous delivery company told Bloomberg, if one of my drivers crashes and kills someone and tests positive for marijuana, that's my problem, not Amazon's. Another company told Bloomberg they've had more success recruiting after no longer screening for weed. Now they're only testing for opiates and amphetamines. Even though Amazon supports nationwide marijuana legalization, it prohibits being high during work. An Amazon spokesperson says if a delivery associate is impaired at work and tests positive post-accident or due to reasonable suspicion, that person would no longer be permitted to perform services for Amazon. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
It looks like Walmart workers are getting a raise. The company says it's increasing pay for more than 565,000 employees. Workers in food and general merchandise units will be getting at least $1 an hour increase. This means the new U.S. average wage at Walmart is $16.40. That's ahead of many other retailers. Several companies, including CVS, have recently raised their minimum wage to $15 an hour. And Alaska Airlines announcing it will require unvaccinated workers to get tested regularly for the CCP virus. They'll also have to take part in a vaccine education program. It did stop short of mandating vaccines, though. As an incentive to get the jab, it says employees who show proof of vaccination by October 15th will get a $200 bonus. Alaska also says it will no longer cover pay for unvaccinated workers if they're exposed or infected with the virus. And new hires will also have to get the shots in order to work for the airline or its subsidiary, Horizon Air. A quarter of its employees are still unvaccinated. And on the flip side, Florida will start issuing $5,000 fines if you ask for proof of vaccination. It applies to businesses, schools, and government agencies. Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill earlier this year that banned vaccine passports. The fines will start September 16th if people are asked to show proof of a vaccine, and not everyone's happy about it. The state's agriculture commissioner, who's planning to run against DeSantis for governor, says he's just retaliating against Florida residents who want to protect themselves and their communities. And Apple seems to be delaying plans to scan iPhones and iPads for images of child abuse. The pause comes after feedback from customers, privacy advocacy groups, even internal staff, according to Reuters. They're still planning to introduce the changes. It says it just needs more time to collect feedback and improve the features of the system. The system would keep a database of Apple's servers on known Apple's servers of known child abuse images. Apple would then scan the photos on your device to see if any of them matched. It's unclear what would happen if they did. Critics argue the feature could be exploited by repressive governments looking to find other material for censorship or arrests. It said it would also be impossible for outside researchers to know exactly what Apple was scanning. Apple says, though, it would allow security researchers to verify its claims. One tech company CEO is worried that control of the internet's infrastructure is being consolidated in the hands of a few big players, giving them the power to censor and control information as they please. In fact, he's so worried, he's calling on Americans to establish a second internet based on free speech principles. NTD's Miguel Moreno has the details.
During the 2020 election, Americans witnessed and experienced the powerful abilities tech companies have and use to legally stifle speech.
We're at a precipice where these companies have so much control and power over what we see and what we do and how we interact with each other.
Martin Avila is the CEO of RightForge, an internet hosting company. He's now calling for a second internet. In other words, making more and supporting more internet companies that value American rights like free speech to prevent what happened to social media platform Parler.
Parler was essentially disallowed from using the physical components of the internet, right? They were taken off their servers. This was completely different than any other sort of deplatforming or censoring. This was the taking away of an ability for a company, a private company, to do business and exist at all on the internet.
Shortly after the January 6th Capitol breach, Apple and Google removed Parler from their app stores for several months. Amazon also removed Parler's website from its web hosting service. The big tech companies accused the network of being too soft on content that incites violence, which Parler denied.
Are your values what make you stand apart from these other companies?
Absolutely. I mean, we've from its inception, we included the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights in our corporate documents because we said there needs to be an internet company that projects American values throughout its entire organization, and so that people can know that that is what RightForge is.
Avila says his message is for everyday Americans. People with websites, for example, can move their sites over to web hosts that embrace their values. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
And stocks closed mostly lower on Wall Street today following the week's jobs report, but gains for big tech companies allowed the Nasdaq to sneak in another record high. It added 32 points, or 0.2%. Dow fell 75 points, or 0.2%, and the S&P 500 lost 2 points today. And the Environmental Protection Agency is stepping in to help areas facing a fuel shortage due to Hurricane Ida. The EPA has issued emergency fuel waivers for Louisiana and Mississippi. The waivers allow refiners to produce, sell, and distribute winter gasoline. According to the fuel app Gas Buddy, the winter blend of gas is cheaper to produce than the summer blend, but environmental regulations usually don't allow winter blends in summer to limit ozone pollution. But Louisiana and Mississippi have been dealing with fuel supply issues since the storm hit last weekend. Gas Buddy reporting about 2/3 of the gas stations in New Orleans and Baton Rouge are still without gas. And the Chinese regime leader Xi Jinping has announced a plan for a new stock exchange. This one will be in Beijing and comes at a time when Chinese companies are facing more and more hurdles to raise money in the United States. NTD's Evelyn Lee has more.
Xi Jinping, the head of the Chinese Communist Party, said Thursday that Beijing will set up a stock exchange. It will serve small and medium-sized enterprises. The China Securities Regulatory Commission, or CSRC, says it will complement the Shanghai and Shenzhen stock exchanges. According to Xi, it's to support the innovation-driven development of SMEs. This comes at a time when Chinese companies have to deal with increasing regulatory hurdles in the U.S. trying to raise money. On top of that, Chinese authorities are upset about tech firms going public overseas because it could give data to foreign governments. Companies looking to list outside of China now need to be reviewed by the regime first. The CSRC says that the new exchange is also an important measure to deepen structural reform of the financial supply side. So far, the Chinese regime's regulatory crackdown on large private companies has wiped $3 trillion from the market. China piloted a registration-based IPO system a while back, and it will be applied to the new exchange as well. The system requires companies to disclose even more about their operations. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
And China's computer chip maker SMIC says it will invest nearly $9 billion to build a plant in the country. The move comes amid a global shortage of chips. The domestic expansion also aligns with Beijing's push to be independent in the sector. Capacity expansion plans have been spurred by temporary shutdowns in the automotive and electronics industries. The new plant will be a joint venture mostly owned by SMIC. SMIC is partly backed by China's state-affiliated chip fund. That's why it's on the U.S. blacklist that restricts it from receiving manufacturing equipment from U.S. suppliers. Those sanctions disrupted the company's plans to move into high-end chip making, but due to the global chip shortage, its financial performance has remained strong. And a small island country north of Australia called Micronesia will be tapping American funding to construct a Pacific undersea communication cable. It's according to Reuters. They say Micronesia rejected a Chinese company-led proposal that was deemed a security threat by U.S. officials. NTD's Patrick Hayden has more.
The Federated States of Micronesia will access U.S. funding to build underwater communication cables. They rejected a proposal from a Chinese company, which US officials deemed a security threat. One expert says the United States Trump-era initiative to counter China's financial involvement with smaller nations' infrastructure is continuing.
It's certainly a push, I think, that this administration is looking into as well. And so it's good to see that, we can kind of step up on this.
Underwater cables have far greater data capacity than satellites. In recent years, the US has been supporting communication projects in the region to counter China's influence.
There is a lot of Chinese money going around, which a lot of these places, rightfully need. They need infrastructure, both physical and digital. They need investments from abroad to help them sort of with their own economic development.
Beijing has consistently denied any intent to use cable infrastructure for spying.
It'd be a shame for them to, supply them with all these undersea cables, then eventually one day we find out that the CCP has full access to all the information that's traveling through them. So
anonymous Reuters sources say the US will contribute funds to a line that would connect 2 of its 4 island states. It would replicate part of a route proposed under a previous $72 million project. That one was cancelled in June after Washington raised concerns the contract would be awarded to Huawei and a Chinese optical cabling company, Huatong. Micronesia's 4 islands have a population of about 116,000. The US-funded cable that's to be built will likely link another underwater cable that connects the US territory of Guam. That's according to one source close to the matter. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
Between 40 and 60% of the undersea cables are controlled by Huawei or other Chinese telecom companies. Sources say funding for the Micronesia project will come from President Biden's American Rescue Plan. And still to come this evening, NASA tests a new project that could revamp your morning commute. It's called an air taxi. It could one day help you soar high above rush hour traffic. And Cape Cod's reputation for great white shark attacks attracts tourists looking to see the wild animal in the wild. Smic fears the predator could scare away visitors. That and more after this short break.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritan green vegetable omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new!
Welcome back. If you think ride sharing is innovative, how about an air taxi? The folks at NASA think it could be a transportation option in the future. They're just trying out the new technology now with Joby Aviation. The company makes this all-electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. NASA is testing its performance and acoustics. Someday you might be able to take one of these between cities. Talk about a commute that will fly by. And London's Covent Garden Market has unveiled a new art installation made of collages and bright neon lights. It aims to inspire joy and positivity and draw more visitors to help businesses recover. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
A bright white tiger welcomes visitors at Covent Garden Market in London. The neon light sculpture is part of an installation by British artist Chyla Berman called Neon Wonderland.
This is more 3D. It's great to have neon 3D. I like the heart because it's very contemporary. It's very sort of chic-y. It's quite modernist. It's got like a girly feel to it. It's got a voguish feel to it.
Michelle McGrath, executive director of Copco Covent Garden, explained what attracted them to Berman's art.
For us, we think art is really important in terms of how we think about place shaping. We wanted something that felt immersive. We're very lucky at Covent Garden because we're a naturally outside area that's also a little bit covered, but it just means that people can walk through very easily and interact with the art.
Danielle and Lizzie Gildea are visiting from Essex and are among the first to enjoy the outdoor exhibition.
I think on like a day like today where it's a bit cloudy, it sort of brightens up the day, seeing like the neon signs and like the pretty flowers and everything. It definitely like makes the day a bit brighter.
The pandemic severely hit Copco in 2020. Most retailers, bars, and restaurants were shuttered. The bright and colorful installation aims to draw more visitors inside the market and help businesses recover. The installation will be in Covent Garden until October and light up from 7 a.m. until 12 p.m. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And Cape Cod is slowly starting to embrace shark tourism, and business is doing well despite fears of recent shark sightings may deter some visitors. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
Michael Simbert crouches on the bow of a shark sighting boat. His partner, Penny Antonoglou, stands beside him as a great white shark glides through the water below. The 2-hour shark eco tour was the highlight of their week-long summer vacation on Cape Cod.
It was incredible. Like to be able to look into the water that clear and see such I didn't realize how graceful they were, really. Just cruising along at their own pace, and they're quite beautiful.
Mike Bosley, owner of Dragonfly Sport Fishing Charters, led their tour. Bosley used to take researchers out to sea to tag great whites. He uses the same methods that shark researchers use to find the predators.
Shark trips are a very complex operation. It involves a spotter pilot and a private aircraft that's in touch with us via VHF radio for the entire time that we're out there. We generally are able to see sharks on every trip.
Some conservationists say shark watching tours could prove beneficial, as long as they continue to be done responsibly. And there are currently no licensing or registration requirements for the tours.
When we started to see white sharks become more prevalent several years ago, there was a concern that it might have a negative impact on tourism. But we've been working to educate people about sharks and having them be shark smart. And what we've actually seen is there's been no negative impact to the number of tourists coming to the Cape because of the sharks.
Cape Cod has been slow to embrace its reputation for great whites. 3 summers ago, the popular vacation destination saw its first attack in years. Dozens of beaches have temporarily closed in recent weeks, after sharks were spotted as close as 30 feet from some of the Cape's most famous beaches. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
That's the latest business updates. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Don't forget to catch all of our programs on TV. NTD Evening News is on every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Find your local NTD channel at ntd.com/TV.